Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm the marketing lead here at Crema, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to taste coffee. On our coffee bags, and most coffee bags, there's a little section that says tasting notes, and under that are descriptors. Generally, they're like fruits or sweet things like caramel or chocolate. One time ours said sparkling, which is weird, but it was true. And the question is always, does coffee actually taste like these things? The answer is yes. Coffee is full of all kinds of chemical compounds that we can perceive as taste and aroma, and I am here to run you through basic ways to start to tune into your coffee a little bit more and pick up on those things more often. So here we go. How we're going to do this is I'm going to go over 3 quick things. Number 1 is some general guidelines for tasting coffee and how to begin to learn how to pick up on your flavor experiences. Number 2 is brewing methods, how to brew your coffee so that you can taste it. And number 3 is what is in coffee, what kind of general categories you can look for when you're tasting, from aroma to body, and I'll taste along with you so you can see kind of what that tasting experience is like as you're going. I'll start with some general guidelines for how to enter into this process. The first one is don't worry too much about precision or specifics. I know on our bags it says like grape and toffee and vanilla, and those are pretty specific, but when you're starting to taste, you're learning a new vocabulary between your mouth and your brain. The way that you taste stuff is that your taste buds and your olfactory system send signals to your brain that are then translated into a language that they've learned by repeatedly experiencing the same thing, like the same stimulus, with the same results. So you know what an apple tastes like because you see the apple and you feel the texture of the apple, and all of these other components are building and your brain says, yes, this is apple. But when you're drinking coffee, you have this expectation of like, this is this warm brown liquid in my cup and it smells like coffee and it tastes like coffee. So the process of learning how to taste coffee is about diving a little bit deeper into that flavor experience beyond just thinking it tastes like coffee, which means that you're kind of learning a new language. You have to practice new associations with this particular texture and substance so that you can pick out on different stuff, which also means that as you're tasting, the next step from thinking this tastes like coffee is thinking this tastes tart or this tastes sweet. These broader categories, it's gonna take you a long time to learn how to pick out this tastes specifically like a grape. That's something that I've been in coffee for a long time, and I still have trouble a lot of times developing past like, oh, this tastes more acidic than the other one. And that's totally fine. Your brain is used to just thinking this is coffee. The second thing is to trust yourself. Your brain is gonna learn faster how to do this if you lean into the associations that it makes, even if they seem a little bit crazy. So if you're drinking coffee and you think about Blue Jolly Ranchers, then it tastes like Blue Jolly Ranchers. This is about your experience and your memories and the stuff that your brain is kind of pulling on as you're drinking this coffee. So trust that. You can't be wrong. And if other people are tasting different stuff, then that's fine. And it makes sense because we all have different flavor experiences that we're pulling from, and we're all going to interact with them differently. The third thing is pay attention when you're eating other foods or drinking other drinks that aren't coffee. The more you learn to associate certain tastes with words, if you know super well what an orange tastes like, because you're paying a lot of attention to what an orange tastes like, and then you're tasting your coffee, it's going to be easier for you to pick up on, oh, this tastes like orange, because I've really noticed what an orange tastes like. And it won't have a direct correlation always, but it's just good practice to pay attention to the other stuff that you're eating. Also, you'll enjoy that stuff more, which is cool. The fourth rule is to take notes. You're learning a new language, more or less. Think of it as like practicing your vocabulary. The more you write down, the more you're gonna remember, and then you can come back to it later and kind of compare your experiences across the board. The fifth rule or guideline is to make note of the stuff you don't like as much as the stuff that you do like. Not every flavor experience is going to be positive. There's stuff that you don't like. There's stuff that I don't like. And it's totally fine to drink coffee and think this tastes like hot garbage, and then write that down. If you don't acknowledge the stuff that you don't like, then you're not going to learn the full extent of what coffee can hold. And the final thing is taste at different temperatures. You're gonna wanna start tasting when the coffee is about body temperature. You don't wanna burn your tongue, you'd be really sad, and all those taste buds aren't gonna function as well. And then from that point on, the coffee, as it cools, is gonna open up more, and you'll be able to taste more and more as it goes. Now that the guidelines are set, we're gonna talk about how to brew your coffee to taste it. There are really two options here. Well, there are probably more. We're gonna talk about two. The first one is mindfully drinking your coffee. I love this option because you don't have to do anything special. Anytime you're having coffee, you can just pay a little bit closer attention, and you're gonna begin to build your understanding of how tasting coffee works just very naturally as time goes on. And you can do it every day if you want. Every time you're drinking coffee, just take a few sips where you are a little bit more attentive to what's going on. It's great. The other option is cupping. And this one takes a little bit more time and effort, but it's really great because you'll be able to taste multiple coffees at once, which is the fastest way to build your understanding of how stuff works, because you'll have a point of reference. So when you're drinking coffee by itself, it tastes like the things that you can pick out, but if you're tasting two coffees side by side, one of them is going to be markedly more or less something than the other one, and you have this reference point to sort of bounce off of the other, and you learn quickly that way. Cupping is also great because you take out any of the variability of brewing. It's a really simple brewing process that is easy to scale up and down, and there's a very little room for user error. So none of what you're tasting is gonna be because of the brew process. Whereas if you were to brew a pour over or something, what you do in the pour over process is going to affect the coffee a lot. Cupping is something that everyone could do, and I'm going to run you through a quick tutorial on how to set one up at home. This is everything that you need to cup. A kettle, it can be any kettle, it doesn't have to be gooseneck because you're just gonna dump water onto coffee grounds. It's very scientific. A scale and coffee, and then multiple, at least two, maybe more, of similar sized vessels. There are like fancy cupping cups that you can get, but you don't need those at all. You can use really anything that you have in your house. It just helps if you have similar sizes so that your recipes are about the same across the board. You'll need a spoon, which again, it can be any spoon. These ones are cupping spoons. They've got big surfaces and deep areas, and the main point is that you have to be able to get some in the spoon so that you can slurp it up. So any largish spoon will be great. I bumped the mic, so hope that's fine. And then a grinder. A burr grinder is preferable. Actually, I would say necessary, but it doesn't have to be something super fancy beyond that, because you're gonna do a fairly coarse grind. And again, you're just dumping water on coffee. So that's what you need. I'm gonna walk you through how you do it. So the first thing you're gonna do when cupping is figure out how much water and coffee you need. We're gonna use a 17:1 ratio, which is 1 gram of coffee for every 17 grams of water. The first step is knowing how much your vessel holds. This one holds 7 ounces, which is roughly 200 grams. And from there, you're gonna subtract 50 grams of whatever the total water amount your vessel holds, because coffee expands once you add the hot water, and you wanna make note of the room for that expansion. So 150 grams divided by 17 is roughly 9. And we're just gonna do 9 grams of coffee in each of these guys. So I'm gonna weigh those out, and then I'll grind it. And I'll grind it to something that's a little bit coarser than drip coffee, but not quite as coarse as French press. Maybe I will show you what that looks like. I don't know if we can do that, but it'll be not super coarse and not super fine. All right, so I have my coffee ground, and I also, while I was grinding it, boiled my water. So this is just off boil. I'm gonna weigh out coffee into my little vessels here, and we'll do the 9 grams that we talked about. I'm not really sure why I'm doing it like this, but you know, you can do it however. Then, because you weighed out your cup in the beginning, if your vessels are all basically the same size, you can just fill them all the way up. You can also use the scale for this part if you want. I don't want to. Just really, really fill them. And then you're gonna start a timer for 4 minutes. and wait. It's been 4 minutes and it's time to stop the brewing process. The way that you're gonna do that is just stir. You can kind of push it in a circle. Typically grounds will have risen to the top and you're just sort of pushing all of those down, and that keeps it from extracting. These are the same coffee, but if they were different, I would have wanted to rinse my spoon in just like a cup of water before I went to the next one. That was bad cupping practice. Nobody tell my boss. And then you're gonna get rid of all the like scuzz that's on top, mostly just because that won't be nice for you to taste. It's kind of gritty and gross. I'm also not really doing this right, but it's fine because as long as you get the scuzz off, you've done it. And then after that, you're gonna wait another 15 minutes, which is a really great time to clean up or drink some water or take a nap or do yoga. Spend it however you want, and then you'll come back and I'll show you how to taste it. So it's been 15 minutes. This coffee is now cool enough that it's not gonna burn my tongue severely, which is what we love. And the way you're gonna taste coffee for cupping is take your spoon, again, any spoon will work as long as it's big enough to hold some coffee. And you're gonna get some in here and you're gonna bring it to your mouth and slurp it. You don't have to look cool, you won't. Just know that going in. The point of slurping is getting air in the mix, so it sprays coffee all over your mouth and you taste more. That's it. You're just gonna... Oh, that's delicious. And then continue tasting it as it cools down, but this is your first mark. So we know our general guidelines on how to practice tasting coffee, and we know how to brew coffee so that we can taste it, and all that's left is to taste it and go through the things that you are going to find in it. So the first thing you're gonna do is sniff it. Aroma is a huge part of how we experience flavor. Like I said before, our brains pick up on stuff from our nose and our mouth. And you can think about this like when you have a cold. When you taste things, it's not very vibrant. You get general ideas of like salty or sour, but you're not going to be able to pick out nuances and stuff. You need your nose to complete that. So you'll start with your nose and just think about like, what am I smelling? Is it a strong smell or a delicate smell? Do I like it? Is there anything that I can pick out about it? Are there any memories that are coming up as I'm smelling this? Typically this part, most of it, is gonna be pretty general. You're not gonna stand here and be like, I smell Meyer lemon and jasmine and heavy cream. That's not how it's gonna go. So I'll start with this one and see what happens. So it's a pretty delicate smell. I'm drinking La Danta, by the way. It's a Peruvian coffee that we probably won't have in stock by the time this video airs, but it's delicious. It's a pretty delicate smell that I'm getting, and it smells kind of caramely, maybe. Like mostly what I smell is sweet stuff, maybe like baked fruit or something. So the next thing we're gonna look for is acidity. Acidity is in most foods that we enjoy, and it gets a bad rap in coffee because people don't like bitterness or sourness, which is totally understandable. But a balanced acidity is something that makes a food lively and interesting and bright, and we really love that. All coffee is going to have acidity. So what you're asking is not, is it acidic? But what kind of acidity is this? How intense is it? Is it like a lemony acidity, or is it like a gentle kind of apple-like acidity? Is it like a tart green apple, or like a gentle, I just said gentle, but that's fine, red apple there, or like a grape, or chocolate even has acidity in it. So that's what you're looking for, is what is lively about it, and how intense is that liveliness, and what are the characteristics of it. This is a point where when you're comparative cupping, you can start to pick out like, what is the difference between this coffee's acidity and this coffee's acidity? Is one more or less tart? Is there one that I prefer? The other thing is that with acidity, you will experience it. So even if you don't have a particular taste that comes to mind when you're thinking about it, you will salivate a bit. Like when you eat a lemon, saliva fills your mouth, and you'll also feel it on the sides of your tongue. So you can note it as an experience even if you don't have particular language for it yet. So I'm gonna taste this and see what we think. This has a really mild acidity. It's really pleasant. This is harder than I thought it would be to do on camera. But it also gives you a good idea of like, I'm not looking for, does this taste like any particular thing. I'm just trying to notice how acidity shows up in the coffee. And this one it's very gentle and delicate, and it's really pleasant. If I had to say it was like anything, I'd say maybe like a grape. The next thing you're gonna look for is sweetness. Sweetness in coffee is interesting because coffee doesn't have any simple sugars in it. So it's not gonna show up in coffee like it shows up in a cake or even in a fruit. The sugars that are in coffee are either from fermentation, from when the coffee was processed, they're imparted by like the coffee cherry, or it's from caramelization, from when it's roasting. So you're gonna get these deep, more like caramely or tropical fruit-y sweetnesses, but it won't be super easy to pick out if you're just looking for something sort of sugary. You can think about it as like a roundness or a balance. It goes back to that thing with acidity and tartness. Acidity without a pleasant amount of sweetness isn't going to be experienced well. So if you taste a coffee and it has that liveliness and it doesn't feel like too much, you're probably experiencing the sweetness that's balancing it. So I, from my last taste, know that I'm probably not going to get any distinct sweet notes, but I do know that it's a really pleasant, like this coffee is very well balanced. The acidity has kind of a counterpoint that leaves an overall like positive experience for me. But I will taste it again because I said I would. Yeah, it's really nice. It is, the more I'm tasting it, the more I'm picking up on like really gentle kind of lime-y things. Lime has a really intense acidity, but it's more like the flavor of lime without the intensity of lime. That makes sense. But see, I'm trusting myself and the weird things that are coming to my mind. The last two things that you're gonna look for aren't taste so much as how you experience these things on your tongue. The first thing is body, and that's just how it feels on your tongue. And so to figure that out, you're gonna ask yourself questions about, is it light or is it heavy? If you think about drinking a cup of water and a cup of milk or like almond milk, the viscosity of those two things is really different. They feel really different on your tongue. You can kind of work on experiencing the body of a coffee by pumping the coffee against the roof of your mouth with your tongue and just really paying attention to how it feels. Other things that you might pick up on are like oiliness or grittiness or like grip. Does it feel like really kind of aggressive? I often will describe a coffee as like high pitched, which doesn't mean anything as far as I'm concerned, but that there are things like that where you just have this sort of body experiential thing with your own body, not the body of the coffee, but about the body of the coffee. That makes sense. But yeah, you're just thinking about, how does this feel on my tongue? Is it heavy or light? Is it oily? Is it gritty? Is it smooth? Yeah, and again, I know this coffee is really smooth and really nice, but I'll taste it and pay a little bit more attention to the specifics of that. This one is actually pretty light-bodied. It is very well-rounded in its taste, like I said before, but it feels pretty light on my tongue. It feels closer to like a water texture than a milky texture. Yeah, and then the last thing that you're gonna look for, and this is arguably one of the most important things, is finish. And that's how the coffee is after you swallow. Like, what is going on in your mouth after the coffee is no longer there. This can make or break a coffee because it's your final lasting impression with the thing. So if you have a really delicious coffee and then you swallow it and what's left is really bitter, or your mouth is really dry and it's just not nice, then that coffee is not going to be as great as it would be if you swallowed it and then what is left is this really pleasant remnant of flavor, or you just feel like you want to drink more of it. So yeah, you're really just asking yourself, after I swallow this coffee, what is the lasting impression? Is it pleasant or unpleasant? Do I want to drink more of it? Are there any flavors remaining? Are they flavors that I like or don't like? Does my mouth feel really dry? In general, what is the final impression of the coffee? So I'm gonna taste it and tell you how I experience it with this one. It's really nice. I've said that the whole time, but this is a delightful coffee. I have like a very small remnant of acidity left, but the overall kind of impression that I get is it's just like very light and nice and drinkable, and I would have a lot more of it if I weren't already maxed out on caffeine. So that's all of the general concepts that you're gonna find in any cup of coffee. Those are the things that you're gonna want to look for and pay attention to as you're drinking coffee to gain a better idea of what you like and don't like and how to talk about it. And you don't have to do any of that in that particular order. That's an order that's useful for me, and that's typically what like traditional cupping format would be. But just pay attention, ask yourself questions about what you're experiencing, and keep practicing. And that's it. That's how to taste coffee. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.